Hello class, I got a quick question about guides, so I thought I'd make a quick video. I'm just going to make a new document here, and I'll make this 8.5 inches wide by 11 inches high, since that's the size of a standard piece of paper. Since this isn't an assignment, I'm going to go ahead and make this 300 pixels per inch. If it's not an assignment, 300 DPI or for print is about what you'll want, so you're probably going to want to go 300 pixels per inch to match that. Honestly, if your computer can handle it and you've got the space, 600 pixels per inch is great. You can work at a much higher resolution, and when you're done, you can shrink it down to 300 to go to print. Or if you're uploading a large document for websites like DeviantArt or Art America or what have you, so that they can be printed, you'll want to have at least 300 pixels per inch. And if you can shrink down to that, it will hide a lot of errors that might have cropped up over time. Let's see, why don't we go ahead and make this just a gray background so that we can see all of the guides correctly. Tell it okay. Now I've got my rulers on. To turn these on or off, just press Control R. If you don't like using Control R for whatever reason, you can get to that under View and Rulers. That will show your rulers. Right-clicking on your ruler allows you to select what kind of measurement you want. I generally prefer inches. Occasionally I will use percent. Rarely pixels. I'd have to be working pretty small to be worrying about that. Once you have these, you can just normally drag your guide down and it will appear. Or on the left, drag it from the ruler on. Now to move your guide, you'll need the Move tool, and then you just drag this around. However, it's possible to lock your guide under View, Lock Guides, and if you've locked your guides from View, Lock Guides, you can't move them anymore. And notice that it thinks I'm trying to click on the background, so I'm just going to unlock my guides by going back to View, and now I will uncheck Lock Guides. Now, if you're having issues and you want a guide exactly right, you can create them by going to View, New Guide towards the bottom here, and just pop in, like if you need it 5 IN, they'll be 5 inches out, and we'll just create a guide exactly 5 inches out. If you can't see your guide, you might have the hide extras on. Control H on the keyboard will hide them. Control H will show them again. Now this is true for selections, so if you have a selection and you Control H, you'll lose your guides as well. Until they're still there, Control H will show it again. And you can also do that by just doing the View Extras, and that will hide and show it. If you're doing a huge number of guides, there are guide layouts, and I've used these exactly never, but it's possible to create them, and if you fall in love with it, more power to you. You can simply punch in the number of guides that you want. The gutter should be the space between them. There we go. You can add rows if you want to have rows. You can do cool things with the margins if you need to have space around it. All of this is available. You can then save these as a new preset and load them back in, and I think that's the nicest thing for it. If you plan on using Photoshop as a layout tool for things like websites or magazines or print or what have you, you can create a guide that you can use every single time, and you'll know that the top left will go the logo, bottom right will go signature, whatever. Save it and then reload it every time. You can also clear out your existing guides if you have a few on there and not worry about it. The center columns, to be perfectly honest, I've forgotten, so let me pause it for a moment and I'll look it up. Like I said, I never use new guides, the new guide layout. Okay, so according to my research, it means that instead of starting at the left, it will start at the center when placing the guides. Since I have an even number of guides here, I believe, yes, they're evenly distributed. We wouldn't notice a difference. Let's go ahead and crank that over to 3, clear out existing. If I punch it in the center, I'm still not going to notice a difference due to the direction that they're laid out and the size of everything. In any event, if you need to have them start in the center and spread out evenly, that's what the center columns will do. All right, so that's the new guide layout. Again, I've never used that simply because if I'm having to do this level of layout, I'm usually in InDesign. But if Photoshop's what you got downloaded, this will sell your ship right, so don't worry about that. Another thing you can do is clear out your guides. If you go to view, clear guides, they'll all disappear, and then you will be sad that all of your guides are gone. So I'm going to drag some new guides back on, so watch out for those. You can also set up the snap, and if you have snap to guides on, then that means if you've created an object, for example, you just fill this with black, Control D, V, this is on a new layer. Notice it will snap to my guides. Now these violet things that are appearing, or sorry, I suppose I should say fuchsia things, these are smart guides. These will automatically be displayed by default. You can see them under show smart guides. I like them. I usually leave them on. If you don't want them for some reason, you can turn them off. You should be able to show them by holding Control, and then depending on where you move your mouse, it will display differently. For example, let's say that we had two objects on this layer. If I have my move tool, two objects, two clumps of pixels on this layer, if I select my move tool and hold down Control, it will draw a bounding box around the entire set of pixels on this layer, anything that's not transparent. So you can see that these are on the same layer instantly. Now that occurs if I mouse over something inside of it. If I mouse just on the layer itself, it will do a bit more. It will do the bounding box on the inside, but it will also measure how far away you are from everything, from all the edges. And if I were to change my ruler by right-clicking and setting it to pixels, let's see if this still does it. Yeah, sure enough, the measurements change on everything. So the rulers are in charge of that. Watch out for that. Smart guides will also help you line things up. And if you're having problems with smart guides snapping things to things, let me show you what I mean. I've just duplicated that by dragging the layer 1 down to the little new layer icon. As I move these, they snap. If I don't want that happening, I can just go up to view and turn off snap. And now these can slide freely everywhere. If I need even more control, I can leave snap on, and I can go to snap to, and I can start turning off things like layers so that they won't connect together. Now, I think that's about everything. If you want to get rid of just one guide, just drag it back onto the ruler and it will disappear. And that's the end of that guide. That should about do it. You can control the guide color under preferences, and then I want to say guides, grids, and slices. And you can see that by default we have a cyan for the canvas, a light blue for the artboard, all of this good stuff. You can change any of the colors that you want. You can make them things other than solid lines. You can do dashed lines. I like the solid lines quite a bit, but if you've actually got solid cyan lines for whatever reason, you can just come in here and change that. Now, another question is, what happens if none of this is working and there are no guides? Well, you're going to have to clear out your Photoshop preferences. Do not do this if you're in the middle of an assignment like the patterns assignment or the brush assignment, or if you have patterns or brushes stored that you have not yet saved out as extra files somewhere where you can get to them. Because when you clear the preferences, you will lose all of those. So they'll be gone forever. So heads up on that. If your guides just aren't working, you don't want to clear your preferences because you're in the middle of working on all of this stuff. What you can do in order to make this work is pretty straightforward. With smart guides on, just go ahead and create a new layer. Grab your marquee, your rectangular marquee tool. You'll notice you have a single row marquee tool and a single column marquee tool. I'm going to select the single row, I'm going to click once, and that will get me a single row in here. It's supposed to. Unless perhaps I too. There we go. Need to clear out my preferences. It should have worked the first time. It's a little upsetting that I had to do it 3 times. But there you have it. Let's say that I've drawn this. Now all I need to do is go edit stroke. I'm just going to fill it with a 1 pixel stroke, inside, outside, center. If you do center, I believe it will actually make a 2 pixel stroke, 1 above and 1 below. So I'm just going to do outside, tell it okay, and deselect. Now I've got a line, right? I'm going to lock the transparency. Going to get my move tool, So now I can move this around, and thanks to Smart Guides, which I still have on, I can use this as though it's a guide because it will snap to it. So you can build your own temporary guide. So this is just a workaround. I've been in a situation before where I could not clear out my preferences without backing up a bunch of stuff. Honestly, I should have done it that way. I really didn't have time though. So I just created a temporary guide. And again, that's just stashed under your marquee tool. So that's a way to work around all these problems. Cyan probably would have been a good choice for this temporary guide. Make sure that you lock the transparency so you don't accidentally paint on your guide. It's going to be a pain to erase it where you don't need it. All right, that's about everything on guides. There are probably a couple of things that I missed, but if you have any questions, let me know. I'm just going to upload this to the Q&A section. So yeah, hopefully everything's going well, but if not, or if you're curious at all, just ask me any question. I'll be happy to record a video. Catch you on the flip side.